JHK, the AllStar UFC heavyweight Jared Vanderaa. Jared, thank you so much for the time. We're just talking about it. You're at your business. Man, how are your businesses going? I know you have a gym, which you're at right now, but also you have a candy machine business. How cutthroat is the candy machine industry?
Well, so the experience has been kind of different because COVID. I bought it right before COVID hit. Like, I don't watch the news. I do not watch the news. So when people were like, "Oh, this COVID thing's real," I'm like, "No, it's not." I'm like, it's just the news. So I didn't believe a damn thing they said. So I've been playing this game during COVID, and it's been pretty brutal. I'm actually in the process of selling it. Just because when I bought it, I wasn't in the UFC, and I'm finding that being a gym owner and in this the UFC thing is actually a lot more time consuming than originally planned. So I'm just like, you know what, screw it. Let's get rid of the candy machine business. Let's focus on the two things that I can really focus on, and they feed into each other. So I was like, it's just going to be a smart move right now.
Definitely the bread and butter. You got to stick with the bread and butter, right?
Yeah, but every now and then you like a little piece of candy. So
Yeah, of course. Of course. You want to go raid the candy machine. That's what you want to do.
I'm actually not a big candy person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so which makes it easy. Like I actually I'm a big person that enjoys real food.
Mhm.
I usually eat a little too much food. But yeah, I'm not a big candy person. Most of the candy I do eat tends to be chocolate. It's just candy's never been my thing. So it was kind of an easy business to get in and get out because it's just like,
Well, I guess you took the advice of Tony Montana, don't get high on your own supply.
I thought that was New Jack City.
Oh, was it New Jack City? Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Mixing up my old movie references.
Yeah, you could be right, but I remember the premise of New Jack City was kind of like don't get high for your own supply. But yeah, that's more or less it.
All right, all right. Well,
Because
you're sitting in California. You're California native. Another California native who recently fought returned after 6 years of retirement, basically, and lost a unusual fight. I thought that was a fight was like it stopped or it ended in a weird way. How did you think Nick Diaz looked in that fight?
it looked like two old guys fighting, like not like you like what they were doing is technically right and stuff like that. It was just it was literally watching two older gentlemen fight, and it wasn't like it was technically bad or anything like that. It was just a slower pace fight than I thought originally anticipated. Now, I don't know. Like a lot of people said that Nick gave up, but I think that shot when he was on his knees from Robbie was truly harder than a lot of people realized. And then I think Nick realized like he was rocked that the best place for him to stay is on the ground, and he could get Robbie to follow, he could recover. And I think that's where Robbie realized like he hurt him and he was using the ground to recover. And so I think strategically Robbie was smart, and so was Nick. But Nick was a lot more hurt than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I think he was hurt a lot, and those people that talk about him quitting, man, it's
Trump.
it's a sensitive word, right? In fighting, right? Quitting.
Yeah, like so at my gym, like next door to us, like behind that wall there, is actual sports bar, or pool hall sports bar. So I like to keep like supporting local businesses. So like we all went there to watch the fights, and I'm just listening to this guy yell. I'm like, oh, he quit, he's a quitter. And I'm like, dude, you look like you've been in maybe two fights in your whole life, and none of them lasted more than 3 seconds. Like, I'm like, if you get a fight now, you're gonna have call Life Alert to help pick you up because you ain't in the best of shape. And I mean, I'm all for you being a fan and stuff, but shut the fuck up. It's like he did not quit. That he was getting punched by Robbie Lawler. It's not an easy day in the office for fucking anybody.
Not an
And
easy day. And there's a lot of those guys at bar. That's why I don't go to bars really anymore to watch fights, because you always see like at least a couple guys yelling like they fought like 30 times at the highest level. They're yelling out advice, which is just nuts to me.
yeah, no. I find what even more annoying is the people that have fought like in the Gladiator Challenge or like some of these rinky-dink promotions that they're good to build up fighters that are real fighters, but they'll pull someone off the street to fight someone else off the street. They're like, "Oh, I'm a badass." I'm like, calm the fuck down, man. Like one time at a bar, I was bouncing. This guy was acting like, "Oh, I'm a cage fighter. I'll beat anyone's ass here." I don't. When I worked at the bar, I never talked about my fighting. I kept my ears covered, and this guy just was harassing everybody. So I'm like, "Yo, dude, you gotta go." He's like, "Oh, who's gonna stop me? I get that you're big, but I'm an MMA fighter. I'll knock you the fuck out. You have never experienced a man like me." I'm like, "All right, like go ahead, swing whenever." And he just looked at me like, "Oh, you should be scared." He was maybe 5'6", 5'7". And I was just like, you know what, dude? I'm not gonna waste my fucking time. I picked him up and walked him to the dance floor. I embarrassed the fuck out of him. Have you ever picked up a big dog and they just look confused?
Yeah, yeah.
That was him. So I placed him outside. He walks straight up to my face, like right here. He goes to his ear and he goes, "You see that?" My ear's a bad example because it actually has cauliflower ear. But he was like, "You see that little faint? You see that mark there? You know what that means? That means I have cauliflower. You know what that means? That means I'm a fucking badass. You want to fuck with me?" I'm like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." I pull off my hat. I'm like, "What the fuck does that make me then?" And he sees my ears and his mouth drops. He's like, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna let you know something. I'm also an MMA fighter. Like, I'm currently a EFC champion. I'm currently doing this. Oh, and you see that bouncer over there? He's an ADCC qualifier. You see that one? He's one of my training partners." I'm like, little secret, we're all over 200 pounds. We all could whip your ass. And then he's just like, "Oh, okay." And he just walks off. I'm just like, fuck. It doesn't help the city I worked at too. Everyone and their grandma thinks they're a fighter. But yeah, no, I just got these wild fucking stories of people like that all the time.
Well, he's lucky that he walked away, man, because if he stayed 5 more minutes, I don't think it would have been a good fight, a good sight.
In all my years of bouncing, I've never actually had to punch anybody.
Mm.
So like I'm really good at de-escalating stuff, but that one was just one of those annoying ones. I was like, "Dude, just shut the fuck up." It's like you're drunk, you're not that big, and clearly you haven't grappled enough to actually have real cauliflower ear.
Well, you have that personality though that you could kind of you're imposing figure, but then you also have the humor, of how you explain things, and you could kind of like get people to smile. I think that this de-escalates situations. Laughter.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have um another fun time at a bar it makes me smile every time I tell this story because it's such a fucking story. So this was before my girlfriend and before I had kids. I worked at a bar here in Hemet, actually literally down the street from right where I'm at now. Um, I threw this guy out because he was sexually harassing one of his coworkers, and at the time, one of my dates every so often. And I'm like, because we had history, I had to be very, very professional throwing this guy out before it looked kind of like I was protecting her and stuff like that. So, but it was a very easy case for me. I'm like, "Hey, sir, please back away. Please back away, sir. If you do not remove yourself from the building, I will physically put my hands on you and remove you." I tell him this like 5, 6 times. I'm like, sir, I'm going to grab you and I'm going to throw you out. Throw him out. They're celebrating his younger brother who just got out of the army. So after I threw him out, his brother found out that I threw him out, gets in my face. Just, again, in my face. Another guy about 5'6", 5'7". He goes, dude, you don't know who I am. I'm infantry. I'm Army infantry. I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, I'm infantry. I'll skull fuck you. I'm like, I haven't heard that one in a while. I'm like, that's a throwback right there. And he was like, I'm going to arm bar you. I'm like, oh, fucking do it. Let's go. I was like, oh, I will triangle you. I'm like, you've never been in a street fight if you're throwing me with arm bars and triangles, but okay, let's do this. I was like, and then his friend was like, yo, back up. You don't want none of that. You heard him. He'll arm bar you. I'm like, I fucking no. I'm like, challenge accepted. And they're like, what, you're not scared of that? I'm like, no. I was like, I've definitely dealt with scary people and the word armbar. He's not one of them. He's like, oh, you're scared. No, I'm like, no, I'm not. And out of nowhere, one of their third member of their friends came up and grabbed the brother that was like threatening me, chokes him out. He was like, I'm sorry, man. I was like, I like bouncers. That's it. My boy is one of your coworkers. I'm sorry, my friends were acting stupid. I'm like, no, it's cool, but I was like, I was very intrigued. He threatened me with a triangle. I was like, I wanted some. And he was like, why weren't you scared? And then he was like, oh shit, are you the fighter that my boy works with? I'm like, yeah, I am. He was like, oh shit. He was like, he grabs his friend that's asleep. He's like, I saved your ass. I'm like, I would have killed him. Yeah. I got some wild stories from the
Yeah,
bar.
that's a good one, man. That's a good one. The threatens with arm bars and triangles. I never heard that before, but sounds like a headline to me.
Yeah, I have some stories
All right.
from bar and everyone thinking they could fight.
Well, hey, from now on, I'm just gonna ask you every interview another bar story because I love them. I could listen to them all day. But we gotta move on to the fight, man. Let's talk about the fight business. Let's talk about from bar fights to actual fighting, sanctioned fighting, which you are involved in. Your last fight, man, was incredible, man. You looked phenomenal on the feet, light on the feet, completely like a 180 degrees difference from your first fight, man. What was the difference, do you feel like, in that fight?
Honestly, I think I got in my head way more than I should have, especially with Speedback. Now, because I watched that fight, I'm like, you know what? I have nothing I regret in my striking department. I'm like, I'm looking good in the striking department. And then when we get to the ground, I just kind of froze. Like, and it bothers me because I saw so many openings that I had, and the ones that like the small openings I took, I'm just like, why didn't I capitalize on it, or why didn't I do that? Like I've watched that fight a few times, and it pisses me off because I'm just like, why did you allow that to happen? Why didn't you do this? Why couldn't you do that? Like that, I think the Spivak fight pisses me off the most because I have all my fights. Like the only two submission losses I have were fights that I felt like was a good back and forth. I never felt I was getting outclassed, but I just got caught. And then the decisions that I've had losses, one of them I will swear up and fucking down I won. The other one I felt like I won that one too. But this one bothers me because it wasn't that I was lacking the skills. I didn't get caught. I failed to mentally show up for that fight completely. And, and Speedback was mentally there. He came 100%. Mentally, physically, and all that stuff. And he won. Like, I'm not trying to sit there and give you excuses. Is it the better man won that night, fair and square? But I kind of realized that quickly that I'm like, yo, I was not mentally ready for that fight. So I purposely did everything I could to mentally push myself into this upcoming fight. I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to prep for the Tafa fight? And I did everything I could. with what I could, and the results easily showed. This fight, I've definitely it's been definitely a different road due to the fact that I have my daughter, or my newborn daughter. Um, she was born 7 weeks ago, so I've had all those hoops to jump in. But for the most part, I feel like I'm mentally, physically ready for this fight. Like I'm not gonna lose. If I lose this fight, it's because Romanov had to earn it. I'm not going to give him the win that Spivak had. I'm not going to go I'm not going to go the next day wondering what happened, why I wasn't prepared and ready. If I get beat, it's going to be because he either caught me or he was vastly more prepared than me. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to be vastly more prepared for me. And the only way I think he's going to win is if he catches me, or if he's a lot stronger than I imagine, and he just holds down a takedown. That's the only way I can see him beating me. Anything else, I don't see it happening.
You mentioned preparations. You go from this heavy-handed brawler to a strong physical grappler in Romanov. What is the difference in your preparations from last camp to this camp, or is there none?
Oh no, there's definitely a huge because we went from a high level striker to a high level grappler, and it was easy kind of going for a high level striker when you are a striker. So it's a lot easier to be like, all right, cool, we're playing into both of our wheelhouses, and I felt good going into that camp. I definitely had a lot of injuries going into that fight. This camp, I don't have as many injuries, but I have a lot more home life issues due to the fact that, like I said, I have a newborn. That creates a whole set of, newborn problems. So, uh, the style of training has changed due to the fact that, like, my wrestling coach was like, "Oh shit, this is my wheelhouse. We're doing it my way," and it's fucking tough because all he does is like, "Okay, 1,000 more." I'm just like, I'm fucking tired. It's like, I'm tired of yelling at you. Let's go. It's like, fuck. He's constantly on my ass, trying to make sure that we're prepped for this fight.
Romanov, he also carries that undefeated record, but a lot of people thought he lost that last fight against Espino. What did you think?
Fuck yeah, he did. Like, I don't know what the judges saw. I don't know how Espino lost that fight. I have watched it, like, obviously, like me going into this. I've watched it twice. The first time was like, yeah, I'm here to like the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, let me see what he's like. And I'm just like, I'm watching it, I'm just baffled. I'm like, how the fuck did Spino lose? Like, I had him round two. Yeah, it's Spino round one for sure. Two, I definitely, that one could have been split. And the 1 minute that they were going, I had the Spino. Unless they took a point for that ball shot away, because I don't know. And honestly, I don't think that ball shot was that effective.
Do you like a fight going to the judges, even though it was stopped early?
Like the like in that case, I think it was a smart thing to do because it's 2.5 rounds. I think it was smart for the judge for like an injury like that. Like, let's say if it was an eye poke or a ball shot, to go to the judges so the judges could be like I thought that was a fair ruling, but I didn't think the judges scored it properly. Um, but I would prefer to, get a finish over going to the judges. I think most fighters would say that.
Of course, man. You don't want to go to the judges. Nowadays, the judges have been acting pretty out of character. So, for yourself, coming up on this fight against Romanov, how do you plan on performing?
I plan on performing my best, but we all know how, what we assume we're going to perform and actual performance are. But no, I do. I'm hoping everything's going well. I have like this last weekend. Yeah, this last weekend, I've been struggling with a bad sinus infection. I don't know if you can hear my voice. It's still a little nasally, but for the most part, I've actually been working my ass off just to get over the sinus infection, just so I could perform. I avoided a lot of I avoided antibiotics in general because I've seen so many good fighters like, yeah, I feel good. I just took antibiotics and then cardio is shot from them. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to fight this as natural as possible, and which, yeah, I feel fine. My cardio still feels like it's close to peaking, so I'm like, we're good.
Another thing that I noticed in your last post-fight interview is you gave the story, or you told the story of Sean Strickland at Team Quest, how he broke your nose and you're bleeding, and then he just said like, "Hey, you're bleeding," and it was like not. It was almost like it was not a big deal. And Sean Strickland, he's a character. Could you give us another gem? Could you give us another story of Sean Strickland, the mystique of Sean Strickland?
Um, I don't know, like, all right, like one night, or one time we were training. The one thing that Sean always liked training with me about was no matter how tired I was, I would go with him. Like I could be on death's door, I could be in the middle of camp, I could be week of camp, and he would be like, "Hey, I need an extra round. I want an extra round. None of these guys are like he just whatever." But there's this one particular day I was just getting my ass handed to me by everybody. It was just like one of the bad days. I remember we win like me and Sean already went like three rounds, and the last round he caught me with what we call a rape choke, where they'll cover your mouth and your nose. He used both hands and he caught me with it, and I'm just like, fucking, I'm tired. And all these people, like he was asking all of our team, like, hey, you want to do another round? Oh no. And he's like, oh, I'm tired, I'm tired. And he's like, oh, fucking pussy. And then he went to the next guy. He was like, hey, let's do another round. I was like, no, you're a fucking bitch. He goes and he goes down the line and he just fuck you, bitch. I'm like, damn. But like he gets to me, I'm like, you know what, fuck it, let's go. He's like, really? He's like, clearly you're tired. I'm like, I don't care. I was like, he's like, you know what, I appreciate you. He's like, you're the biggest guy here in the gym, and you're the one guy I can count on to go an extra round. He goes, this is why I like you. I'm like, oh, the only reason why.
I can just imagine Sean just going down the line, just berating everybody until he gets to you, and then you're like, okay, whatever. It's not a big deal.
He'll talk. He was like, "Oh, this fat motherfucker's coming." I'm like, "This fat ass will just lay on you."
Well, that's an option. Well, anyways,
Mm.
October 9th, man, UFC Fight Night, you're back in there. It's going to be an incredible fight. I like this matchup because it kind of, it's kind of like a barometer of like where you guys are going to go from this point on. You know what I mean? You guys are both great up and coming heavyweights, and there's a lot of them out there. There's some that are rising faster than others, but it's great to
Chris
see.
Dark.
Yeah.
He's fought what 3 fights? That's it. Like he's had 3. I mean, excellent fights. I'm a fan of Chris. I was like, oh damn, he's out here murking people. What was it? He had Parker Porter. What was his debut? And right, and then had 2 other guys, and then he was it three or 4 fights,
I think it's
and
four
he's our
fights. Yeah, four knockouts.
yeah, that's been beautiful knockouts by the way.
Yeah.
But you look at like Romanov, I'm what his 3rd fight,
Fourth,
I
yeah,
believe.
fourth maybe third fight, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like we said undefeated. He's not getting a high tier or like you know maybe he should be the one fighting Alexei Oleinik or Ty Burris. Like, I mean, I'll give my opponent, his credit because he has what at least 3 fights in the UFC, 2 or 3, and like he's fighting me. Not to say I feel like not to say I'm beneath some of these guys, but on the rankings and status, I am beneath these guys. I still have to make a name for myself and all that stuff. And, poor Romanov, maybe he should be fighting someone in the top 15. But I also think there's a lot of people in the top 15 that are scared of him. And because they're like, "Do you want to fight Romanov?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." They're like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Mama didn't raise no bitch." So, so here I am fighting Romanov. And I think though, if like honestly, I think if either of us win, we're definitely going to be seeing our next fight. Either breaking into the top 15 or actually making it into the top 15 a little bit higher than like 15, 14, but like closer to like 10, 11.
Yeah, there's
And
no
the
doubt about that. You're right. Whoever wins this fight is gonna be propelled up that rankings in the top 15.
yeah, it's definitely going to be closer than anything else, which is cool. Well, I mean, that's why I think it's very important for me to win more so. Uh, like I think me being Romanov, I think would do more for me than for Romanov beating me.
That's a good position to be in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and like if this goes to the judges, like I think a lot of people gain a lot of respect from Espino.
Hmm.
Despite the controversial stuff, I think a lot of people respected Espino, and I think Espino is one of those guys that a lot of people are also afraid of because of his grappling background and having a win over Romanov, or even like a close loss like that. I think would help project, myself up one way or another.
For sure, man. Well, Jared, man, I appreciate you taking the time today from your busy schedule to speak with me, and good luck on October 9th in Las Vegas.
Thanks so much, man. You have a great day.